Big Boss Man. Kieran Wakefield is my favourite player of all time. He is also the best player in the world. You can tell he is the best player. Real Madrid paid more money for him than any club has paid for anyone else ever. My dream is to see him play at the Bernabeu. That's where Real Madrid play their home matches. It can hold over 80,000 people, and one day I want to be one of them. I dream about Kieran Wakefield most days at the factory. My job is fairly repetitive, so sometimes I go into a trance and think about how amazing he is at football and what he might be doing while I'm sewing boots together. He's probably playing football, I know, but it's still nice to imagine. Rochi moans that he can't get through to me when I'm daydreaming, but I think he's just jealous because his favourite player is Leon Belmont. Because his favourite player, Leon Belmont, isn't as good as Kieran Wakefield. They're both Galatasaray, but Wakefield costs more. Rochi says Galatasaray just means superstars. Rochi always wears a pink Manchester United shirt to work with Belmont on the back. Manchester United shirt should be red, but Rochi's is so old it's faded to pink. He doesn't actually support Manchester United anymore because Belmont plays for Real Madrid now, but it's his best shirt. Some people think you have to support the same team forever and that if you change teams, you're a glory supporter. But following your favourite player is different. Glory supporting is probably the ugliest thing about the beautiful game. Or maybe that's diving. Houston has started diving because his favourite player, Jesus Bugler, does a lot of it. It's really disgraceful. But because we don't have a referee, he normally just gets kicked by whoever is nearest and told to get up. Buddy, Rochi shouts. Hey, I'm going to start throwing things at you if you keep ignoring me. I didn't hear you, I shout back. The sewing machines are really loud sometimes. What do you want? Rochi looks over both shoulders before shouting. Did you hear Wakefield's injured? Nah, no he isn't. Stop lying. I'm not lying. I saw it on the television this morning. It's true that Rochi has a television. His dad bought it a long time ago. There's a crack that runs right down the middle of the screen, so they can't sell it, but it still works. I'm supposed to be watching Real Madrid v Valencia match at his apartment tonight. It's also true that Rochi knows a lot about football. He's a few years older than me, so he knows stuff that I'm too young to remember. I don't believe that Kieran Wakefield is injured though. I don't want to. I still think you're lying. Whatever. You'll see later. The foreman approaches our row and we put our heads down. All I can think of is Kieran Wakefield rolling around on the floor holding his ankle. It's probably broken in 3 places and he'll never play again. It's a tragedy. Everyone will be wearing black armbands at the game tonight in honour of the best player in the world. The foreman stops at my station and taps his roton on the workbench. Faster, buddy, faster. I can smell coffee and cigarettes on his breath. I work faster. Even though I don't look round, I can sense him waiting behind me, and the skin on the back of my arms tingles in anticipation of the roton. Foreman doesn't know about my bleeding problem. I think maybe it's not just words that can make you bleed on the inside, and I think the foreman knows that too. Slow beads of sweat roll down the side of my face, gathering beneath my chin and dripping into my lap. My shirt sticks to my back. His presence is distracting, so I try to think of something else. Kieran Wakefield hobbles to the side of the pitch and shakes his head. He makes the sign for a substitution. The bench look worried. Everyone in the crowd acts like Real Madrid are about to be relegated. My fingertips are sweaty and the plastic cover slips every time I push it towards the needle. It's normally only when I'm really tired at the end of a shift that I start making mistakes, but we haven't even reached our lunch break yet. Another stale gust of coffee and cigarette smoke fill my nostrils. I wonder whether the foreman is just sighing or whether the air stirred because he moved his hand. aiming the rotan at the soft flesh on the back of my arm. I can't even tell whether he's still standing behind me. The air is so thick with the buzzing of the machines. My fingers slip again, but I manage to keep the stitches straight. I try to imagine the foreman isn't there. I tell myself that this pair of boots is the pair that Kieran Wakefield will make his comeback in. I really concentrate on making them the best boots I've ever made and focus on every stitch. As well as making boots for Kieran Wakefield, we also make boots for Lazzaro Celestino, who is probably the most overrated player of all time. He plays for Barcelona, which says it all really. Sometimes, when I'm making his boots, I deliberately miss a few stitches just to annoy him. Stitching the upper is the most important job, and in the factory, because that's the part you use to kick the ball. If there's a crease in the material, the consequences could be disastrous. Someone might end up missing a penalty in the World Cup final. It could literally change the course of history. The upper is also the part you see most on television, and it would look pretty bad if a professional footballer kept tripping over a loose thread. The upper arrives in different pieces that are cut out by a big blue machine standing against the far wall. These pieces are all different colours: red, green, pink, yellow, orange. Rochi swears that once upon a time all football boots were black, which must have been really boring. We then sew all these pieces together in a particular order. The foreman gets really angry if we make a mistake, so we have to be careful. He also gets really angry if we're too slow, so we have to be fast. He's kind of like a referee who can't stand late tackles or time wasting, but instead of yellow card, he uses a rotan. And instead of red cards, he throws people out on the street. The strictest referee in the world, the referee of doom. Another stale breath reminds me that the strictest referee in the world is watching my every move, and so I think of something else before I make a mistake. After we've stitched the upper, another section of the workers glue the upper to the sole unit. If the boot has studs, a machine screws them in. If the machine is broken, a person screws them in. Once I took too long on a toilet break. I had diarrhoea, and the foreman made me screw studs into boots for the rest of the afternoon. It's the second worst job in the factory, and it's made even worse when your stomach hurts so much that you think you might break at any moment. After that, the boots have insoles put in and labels attached. Then they're laced up by a section of girl ninjas. I call them ninjas because they're silent and lightning fast, and most of them wear black headscarves. Finally, the boots are inspected before being wrapped in paper and boxed up. Boxing shoes is the worst job in the factory. It's also the easiest job in the world, and only the real idiots work on that station. Being moved from sewing to boxing is like being substituted at half time, and not because you've already scored a hat trick and need to be rested for the midweek cup fixture, but because you're rubbish. Once I was late because I had to help Mum with Grandma in the morning, and the foreman put me on boxing for a week as punishment. It was so boring. I haven't been late since. The buzzer suddenly goes for break and makes me jump. Luckily, I don't mess up the stitching. The slight shadow over my station disappears, and from the corner of my eye I watch the foreman stroll along the roll. Every few steps he leans over someone's shoulder, readjusting the grip on his rotan before nodding and moving on. Because Rochi and I work on the same section, we don't normally get the same break, which is really annoying because I want to know if he's joking or whether Kieran Wakefield actually is injured. I tell myself that he probably isn't injured, and if he is, it's probably something minor. He can't be seriously injured because everything seems too normal. If something terrible had happened, I'd feel it. I'd just know. I place the finished upper on the pile next to my machine and head upstairs to the canteen. The canteen is a stuffy little room that overlooks the factory, where a scrawny lady in an apron serves mushy rice and sauce of the day. Sauce of the day is the same every day, and I think it tastes like cabbage and coconut. Some people say it tastes like bean sprouts and coconut. Other people say it tastes like cigarette ash and coconut, which would make sense because it's grey and the serving lady always has a cigarette hanging from her lip. Whatever it is, it's definitely coconut based. Everyone in the canteen seems interested in only one thing, the pay rise. At the next table, a group of women talk excitedly about the extra money they'll earn when the minimum wage goes up. One of them says that she'll be able to afford more food for her children. Another says that she might be able to start paying off her brother's debts. A younger girl says she might be able to afford to go to school again. That's another thing I don't like about the canteen. Everyone suffers from a total lack of imagination. Maybe if you eat enough sauce of the day, it goes to your brain. When I get the pay rise, I'm going to the burner bar, not wasting it on boring stuff people spend money on every day. One of the women tells the others not to get so excited. This money will never materialise, she says, looking into her tray of pay rise. It's all just talk and nonsense. But it's been agreed by the government, one of the others say. So what? The government says it's going to do lots of things, but do they ever get done? They always talk about new hospitals and skills and jobs, but that's all it is, talk. I haven't seen anything change for years. This is just a new tactic to make the protesters go back to work. Even if there is an increase in the minimum wage, it'll be years before we get it, and by that time, everything will have gone up in price, so we won't be any better off. The rest of the women look pretty unhappy when she finally stops talking, but I know she's got it wrong. After all, Dad reads the newspaper every day, so he knows what's going on. The women look so miserable that I feel like telling them not to worry, but then something catches my eye outside the window. On the walkway above the factory, one of the dragon's brother approaches the foreman's office. The last time I counted, the dragon had 3 brothers, although new ones are always turning up from Komodo and old ones are always disappearing. They all look the same, fat and rich and mean. Once the dragon found out that one of his brothers was taking an extra cut from the rent collections, so the dragon killed him. Well, he cut his fingers off first, then he killed him and dumped the body in one of the bins in the square, about 30 metres from where he lives. Everyone knows the dragon did it, but no one went to the police because one of the dragon's other brother is the chief inspector, and only an idiot would arrest his brother for being a brother murderer. The brother that's on the walkway goes straight into the foreman's office without knocking, and he emerges a few minutes later with a thick brown envelope. Rochi says that even though the factory's outside the dragon's territory, he's always threatening to burn it to the ground, so the foreman has to pay him protection money. The dragon's brother flicks through the contents of the envelope before tucking it into his back pocket. As he turns to leave, he catches my eye, and before I have the sense to stare down into my tray of grey rice, he winks at me and smiles, showing off the gaps between his stained teeth. I don't look up from my tray for the rest of my break. I just scrape the stodgy rice into my mouth and force it down. Only someone with a death wish looks one of the dragon clan in the eye. When the buzzer goes, I return to my station and find Rochi hunched over his machine. There is a dark patch around the number 7 on his back. Some of the curved lettering at the top of the shirt is beginning to peel away. He looks up as I start sewing, and the beads of sweat glisten on his forehead. It's too hot today, he shouts, rubbing a hand over his face. And too loud, I say. The foreman comes out of his office and stands on the walkway overlooking the factory floor. Rochi and I both concentrate on our work until he goes back inside. Hey, buddy. What? Did you know that top footballers only wear a pair of boots 3 times? No, that's not true. Yeah, they wear them for 2 training sessions to get used to them and then wear them for 1 match. Then what do they do with them? I don't know. Probably throw them away. Now, Rochi knows a lot about football, but that is definitely not true. If that were true, it would hardly be worth the effort of making them. I imagine there are probably fans like me who collect them. All the players in lower leagues get to use them. Or there is a big boot-shaped museum that displays them all. If I manage to save enough money, I would like to visit that museum, as well as seeing Kieran Wakefield play at the Burnaby. I'll probably take my whole family, including Grandma. Maybe that's why they get paid so much money, I say. Rochi looks up from the boot he's stitching. What? Maybe footballers get paid a lot because they have to buy a new pair of boots every week. Rochi shakes his head. Footballers don't buy their own boots. I'm pretty sure that's wrong too. If footballers don't buy their own boots, then who does? Their parents. I want to ask Rochi who pays for footballers' boots, but I don't want to look stupid, so I just keep stitching. I also want to ask him how much it would cost to see Kieran Wakefield play at the Burnaby. But then the foreman comes out of his office and starts pacing along the walkway, tapping his roton against the railing.